Well, hey there, folks. If you're a caver or even just someone who's curious about caves, you've probably heard about white nose syndrome. It's a nasty disease that's been ravaging bat populations all across North America, and as cavers, we've got a big role to play in stopping it. In this video, we're going to take a look at what white nose syndrome is, how it spreads, its effects on bats, and most importantly, what you and I can do to help keep these critters safe. So what is white nose syndrome exactly? It's a fungal disease that grows on the skin of hibernating bats, usually on their noses, ears, and wings. And it causes a white, fuzzy-looking growth, kind of like this guy. When bats get infected, it messes with their hibernation. They're not sleeping well, they're in pain and stuff. They wake up too often and they use up their fat stores. This guy in particular has a lot of fat stores. This ultimately can lead to starvation and death. So how does this thing spread? Well, it loves cold, damp caves where bats like to hibernate. They like to huddle up pretty close to each other, and in many cases, they might even visit multiple colonies. And so we know that bats can't fly across the ocean, right? And so that's how we know for sure that humans must have been the cause of the spread of white nose syndrome from Europe into America. In a similar way, the fungus can hitch a ride on your gear, your clothes, or even your shoes. That means it can be inadvertently spread from one cave to another by cavers. White nose syndrome has had devastating effects on bat populations, causing declines of up to 90% in some species. Several bat species that hibernate in caves are particularly vulnerable, such as little brown bats and tricolor bats. With fewer bats to eat the skeeters and other insects that are flying through the air, the ecological impact is astronomical. It affects agriculture, forestry, and even human health due to increased insect-borne illnesses. So I'm sure you're wondering, what can we cavers do about it? First things first, we need to stay informed, stay up to date with all the latest info. That means keeping an eye on cave closures and restrictions in affected areas, and we ought to respect these restrictions as they can help prevent the fungus from spreading. Number two, we need to avoid disturbing bats. If you come across bats when you're in a cave, just remember, don't disturb them, keep your distance, and whatever you do, don't touch them. Not only is it safer for the bats, but it'll help keep the fungus from spreading, and it's a good way for us to show respect to these beautiful little critters. Now let's talk about decontaminating your gear. If we're going to keep the fungus from spreading, we've got to clean everything. That means shoes, clothes, helmets, all of it. So the National Speleological Society, the NSS, that's the group in charge of all of our grottos, which are caving clubs, they've got some solid guidelines on how to do it right. You can look on caves.org for very specific info, but I'm going to walk you through the process just in case so you know what it looks like. Before you even head into the cave, make sure you use gear that is free of any fungal contamination. If you've caved in another location, you should clean all the gear you use before using it in a new cave system. And if you can, dedicate certain gear just for geographical areas so you don't carry the fungus from one cave to another. First up, you want to clean up your boots. Get some soapy water and you want to scrub down the soles and the uppers, get all the mud off, and then we can think about disinfecting it. You can use a 10% bleach solution or another antifungal disinfectant. Just make sure you get all this nice and clean. We're going to do that now. Alright, for your caving clothes, you want to wash them separate from your other laundry using hot water and detergent. Now, if you come home from the cave and there's like a lot of mud all over your stuff, you're going to want to probably try to pressure wash the mud off so you don't ruin your washing machine, and try to find a fungicide to spray it down with that's safe for caving gear. You might not want to bleach your caving suit or your clothes, but you can find something to spray it down with afterwards just to make sure you got all the spores. You don't want to leave any behind. Helmets, gloves, and other gear, give them a good scrub with soap and water, and then make sure you disinfect them. You can use that 10% bleach solution, use whatever. Make sure you kill all the fungus. Same thing goes for vertical gear. You don't want to have dirty vertical gear. It can really trap a lot of dirt and debris, all that other stuff. Make sure you get it all. After you're done, make sure all your gear dries completely. You can hang it up somewhere. I can hang it up on this board, or I can hang it up outside on the gutters of my house. Make sure your gear is fully dry before you store it or whatever, and that way the fungus isn't able to reproduce in those damp conditions. White nose syndrome poses a serious threat to White nose syndrome poses a serious threat to bat populations, but with careful attention and responsible practices, cavers can help prevent its spread. By staying informed, avoiding disturbing bats, and following proper decontamination protocols, we can ensure that we protect these vital creatures for generations to come. You're going to be all right, little buddy.
For more information, go to the NSS website, caves.org.